Hello, happy Thursday. Thursday, September 24th, 2020. You are joining us with the Future History Podcast. How are you?
I'm good. Yourself?
Talking about a lot of food today, pre-podcast.
Yes, getting me hungry. So, this day in history, we'll just start real quick. The Judiciary Act of 1789, passed by Congress and signed by President George Washington to establish a Supreme Court. And originally it was made up of 6 justices who would serve until death or retirement. And it wasn't until 1869 that they settled on 9 justices, but at any point, Congress can change that number, which is why sometimes they threaten if a certain president pushes somebody through or tries to push somebody through, then they'll just stuff the justice, the amount, because they are able to change that number at any point. So anyway, it was designed to oversee cases involving treaties, foreign diplomats, maritime jurisdiction, and cases where constitutionality is at the root of the issue. And that was the point of the Supreme Court. They argue cases where they have to determine whether a law or whether something is constitutional or not constitutional. And that's what their job is. Unfortunately, sometimes the justices overstep their bounds and they like to either change, their job is not to change the laws. Their job, Congress changes the laws, right? And sometimes they take it onto their own hands, and it's really...
They're also supposed to interpret it literally.
Correct, and that's what their job is. But at any rate, the number can change, which is interesting at any point. 1957, President Dwight Eisenhower ended up sending federal troops into Little Rock, Arkansas, to protect 9 students from having any issues when they entered an integrated school there. So, and today's birthdays: Jim Henson, creator of the Muppets, born on this day in 1936. Linda McCartney was in the band Wings, not exactly famous other than the fact she was married to a Beatle, but she was born in 1941. Sadly passed away already. And Lou Dobbs, who was a TV personality, born on this day in 1945. And in 1946, Mean Joe Green, one of the best defensive linemen of all time, played on the Steel Curtain. Pittsburgh Steelers defense was born. He had a commercial in 1979, Tom, when I was a kid. He was coming out of the football game, and a kid stopped him walking into the locker room, and they ended up sharing a Coke, and they had a drink, but it was just, as a little kid, seeing this big mean football. His nickname was Mean Joe Green.
Right.
So it was interesting. But I remember him, and he was Pittsburgh Steelers. They won 4 Super Bowls in the '70s, so they were a great team. And that's on this day in history.
Pittsburgh's a cool town.
Yeah,
I hear a lot of good things about it.
They have I'll tell you, that football team has some tradition. It's very. It's like a real blue-collar type of team.
Yes.
It's always
that's the type of town it is, too.
And that's why they like them so much, because the team really represents its people. And it's a, hard-running team. You had Franco Harris in the 70s. Their defense, it was called the Steel Curtain. You ever see a picture of the football player with no teeth in the middle? It's famous. Like, he's always, whenever they show like a mean-looking football player,
that's the guy.
He had like Jack Lambert. He had no teeth in the middle. He had these 2 like fangs, and he was just, back then they didn't really pay any attention to issues with other players' heads and stuff like that. So, they kind of headhunted, and the tackles, they weren't worried about concussions and stuff.
Yeah.
So. He's
a less enlightened time, maybe.
Yeah, that's what it was. They didn't know as much about, and guys would probably play with concussions all the time, which is why you're seeing a lot of them having issues nowadays.
This guy looks like a maniac.
Yeah, but that's what the Steelers looked like back then. They were just a badass team. The defense was, they won. And Terry Bradshaw, I don't know if you ever, he's got a show now on the E! Network. They kind of replaced the Kardashians with the Bradshaw bunch. And it's his family, and he was the quarterback that won 4 Super Bowls. He's a little wacky, older, like Southern guy, a little crazy, but it was an interesting team. And then they had a guy who was half Italian and half black, Franco Harris, and that was their running back. And you had Lynn Swann, John Stallworth.
Franco
Franco Harris, yes. and he made the immaculate reception, which is a famous catch that ended up in a touchdown. But they were really, like, every decade has a dominant team. Like the 90s, it was the Cowboys. The 70s, it was the Pittsburgh Steelers, the Steel Curtain defense. And Mean Joe Green was born 1946 in this day. But what
Mean Joe Green.
Yeah, he was you know,
Pretty
personified the name. Yeah. So, at any rate, I did some research into you know, last night. Looked like there was some protesting.
2 cops were shot.
Yeah,
I
so
think
that's
at
what.
least.
Yeah. So I did check on what actually happened in the case, and I'll tell you, it's just a. First of all, very, very sad that this woman died. I mean, it's horrific what happened, you know. And I don't know. I'll tell you, I don't know what the answer is to sort these things out. I just what happened was, apparently. Are you familiar with, like, the?
Some of it.
Okay. So do you want me to go through it?
Yeah, I mean.
Okay.
Enlighten. Tell me.
Okay. So what I think happened was police had a they were looking after a guy who was been a drug dealer for a number of years, and she had dated this guy, and they were now, according to her family, they were now apart, and Brianna was living with another guy in her apartment, or his apartment, whoever's apartment it was. Probably hers, because that apartment was the reason they were there. The police was they had a warrant to search it because apparently this ex-boyfriend used to get packages to that apartment.
Gotcha.
So they were probably trying to find drugs on the premises or see if they could catch him. So they have what's called a no-knock warrant. You know, where they
can just burst in.
They could basically burst in and search, and it's apparently
I don't like that.
they were supposed to have done away with these things. Especially in light of what's been going on recently.
Yeah.
And now since she got killed, they're
really putting the kibosh.
They've
on
done,
that.
yeah. But one of the issues is when police arrive, they're supposed to announce that they're there. They claim that they did. The boyfriend, not the old boyfriend that was the drug dealer, but the guy that was living in the house with Breonna Taylor, said they never announced anything. I never heard it. So what they did, they use a battering ram to go through the door. So I mean, imagine like you're sleeping in bed and
I'd
just
have a shotgun in my hand
just
already.
after midnight, you hear guys battering at your door.
Yeah, it would be a big problem.
So what happened was, he was apparently, and again, this is what his testimony was. I'm not putting my spin on it. He testified that he thought it was her ex-boyfriend coming into the house. So they asked who it was, who is it, and then they heard the door basically come off the hinges.
Right.
And that was when he shot through the door or something, and it hit a cop in the thigh. Then police are supposed to have a sight line when they shoot. And so the one cop that was dismissed from the police just shot like 10 rounds into the door.
Nothing. Yeah.
And he ended up, I guess, I imagine it was some of his bullets that hit her, but she got shot 5 times. So the other issue is there was an ambulance that was called to the premises before the raid went on. They usually have an ambulance present in case a shootout goes on or something. They try to keep an ambulance close at hand. And for some reason, they called off the ambulance before the raid. So I don't know why. That was what I read in the court case. And then they called paramedics in again. The police called, and I believe Harris, which was Breonna Taylor's boyfriend, had called 911. And his thing was, I don't know what happened. People burst in the door and they shot my girlfriend. And the police, I mean, apparently all the medical attention was going to the cop that was shot. They say it took 20 minutes to get to her. You know, when she finally got medical attention, the coroner's office said she probably died within a minute or two because
she got blasted.
Yeah, so
Oh boy.
the mother was awarded $12 million compensation. I mean, there's no one of my kids ever got killed, there'd be no dollar amount that I can ever. God, I couldn't even imagine. So,
I tell you,
it's just awful.
brutal.
It's awful.
It's brutal.
And, but I do understand.
I like what Jocko Willink says. I think that it should be really highly trained officers who never stop training. who are under as much attention and scrutiny as military personnel. But that's like the same response to putting an armed guard in the school. Like, nobody wants to hear that. But it's the most logical and most... It'll work.
You know what's scary? Let's say you get and I'm only playing devil's advocate because to me, I think that's a good idea to have that training. You know, what about if you get a police force that's so highly trained that they're more highly trained than the military, and then they end up going rogue? You know, like it just. I'm just saying that's a real far-fetched thing, but there's always a yin to the yang.
That's like saying the Air Force.
Correct, I know.
Could go rogue.
I
mean,
it is like saying that. I know.
NASA is like they say a rogue, Alex Jones goes off on that. But there's some truth to it.
I just don't know. I don't know what the answer is with these cases. I mean, I think a first step.
I say let your Second Amendment shine through.
Which they did. The guy shot, and that's what got her killed. You know, so I mean, it's like.
No, but I mean, if you want to, I don't mean in that case. I'm saying like with defunding the police. That's just what's going to happen. There's going to be way more home shootings.
I can't imagine defunding the police how that would help. I just don't. I don't see the.
It's a hard job.
It is. I don't know how to do it.
At the same token, one of the true things is when you sign up for it, you know what you're signing up for.
True. I think that you get a lot of people go into the job. There's two types of people. There's ones that go in because of the pension, and they go in for the perks of the job.
Yeah.
Then you get the people that want to make a difference and go into it. And I think both are hit with a reality that, holy shit, this is way more than I signed up for. And it's a...
You're not like patrolling, fairyland.
No, and that's the thing. I mean, I couldn't imagine patrolling East New York and having to, I don't know. I think training is definitely I have to agree with that. I think that increased training, they have to also, almost like they need to take some sort of minimum test where they're mentally still sharp, physically still sharp to do the job. Because I just don't think that a lot of police, if they had to take these tests after they've been on the force for 10 years, 15 years, would meet that criteria.
Sometimes it feels like when they go on these raids, though, that there's this like excitement,
gangbusters
of like being a cowboy.
Well, I agree with you.
And they look forward to that. It's been spoken on.
I'll tell you an example of that. Ronnie Coleman, who is probably the most famous bodybuilder of today's, not comparing to like the old days with Arnold Schwarzenegger. Ronnie Coleman, though, is a black guy. And he said on the Joe Rogan podcast, he was being interviewed, and he said, I always used to look forward to, I would pray that I'd have action that day.
Right. Yeah, so, I think I saw the same thing.
And it kind of like struck me a little weird. Like, as a cop, I get it. You want some sort of excitement in your job, but, to have to physically engage with another person, I think is the wrong attitude. And I was kind of shocked he said that. But
at the same token, if you woke up and you were a cop every day and you were like me, where like, you don't want to bother with anyone, you just want to have a peaceful day, so you're gonna get your ass whooped.
But that's the thing.
It's like a tough.
That's what I mean.
Thing.
It's a conundrum. It's like, what's the right?
You need an alpha personality to enforce, but then
when things happen,
right?
Alpha guys by nature are cowboys. They want
a cowboy around.
That is a job, though, where, man, you can't have a beta and you can't have an alpha. It's like you have to just be level-headed.
I think they give the job over to the ladies. Let ladies do it.
Well, there are a lot of women cops.
I know.
And
they hold their own.
They do. I think some of them sometimes have to assert themselves. They might go a little too
far, right?
Yeah. But it's just a tough job. I don't know. Suburban cops, especially on Long Island where we are, get paid
a fortune.
They get paid a very good salary, and they get great perks and benefits and retirement. So, I mean, they are paid to do the job. It's not like they're not paid, but it's the city cops who work in New York City, which is one of the toughest areas in the world to police, and they're paid.
I just can't. There's so many layers to crime.
Yes.
You know, like there's so many different types, and there's like the guy throwing like debris on the subway tracks.
Yes,
like,
I know.
You know, like you have to look out for those things constantly. Like
Yes.
a train will derail and kill
Sure.
everyone in the frickin' subway. It's just, you know, I don't have the answers. I say rest in peace to Breonna Taylor. I think it's terrible.
Yeah, I think it is a the poor, God, and she was an EMT. Like she was a. I think the moral of the story, if there is one,
Is everyone chill?
well, is that, and maybe if your boyfriend is a drug dealer,
Yeah.
and
Let him go.
apparently she did try to get away from him, but the problem is when you are
Sometimes
around,
those types of guys are hard to get away
when
from.
you're around shit,
Right.
you attract flies, and it's hard, and it might be a decision that you make earlier in your life, and it's hard to get away from that. So I think that it's
We got a couple flies in here, I think. I think we attracted a couple.
so it's just a I don't know, but I think that was what unfortunately her association with this guy is what led to her death. I mean, it's terrible. It's terrible. I don't even know any means want to make it like it's her fault she got shot.
But you're also allowed to rationalize it.
Yeah,
how
I'm
you
just
see it.
trying to. I just wish that maybe. I wish it didn't happen. I mean, that's what I wish. It's just horrible to hear a young woman who was a contributing member of society
Yeah.
to be snuffed out like that. It's heartbreaking, and it's God,
There's a lot to look into.
tough to swallow. Tough to swallow. But I don't think this mob violence is the answer, though.
No.
I just don't. I don't think so.
I think that anything is possible, and I think it's possible to think it's a tragedy what happened to Breonna Taylor,
Yeah.
and it's also a tragedy to riot.
Yeah.
I sit on that fence. I'm like, I don't think it's good what happened to her, and I think that the looting and the rioting, it's just bad, bad, bad.
Protesting is a good thing where there's strength in numbers, but there's a difference between protesting and rioting. And rioting all it does is it takes away from the actual issue at hand. And it's very sad because now, it now shifted from Breonna Taylor to this guy who shot the cop. So now everybody's thinking it's like you're not accomplishing what you want.
Yeah.
All you're actually doing is making people think, "Wow, you guys are violent," and it's not. So I don't know. I just
It's a real.
it's a tough thing. But apparently what happened was not considered a crime because the guy was acquitted. That whoever they were charging, one guy got dismissed from the job, and the letter to him said, "You showed very, very indifference toward the value of human life by not having a sight line."
I'll tell you, cops know how to pull that trigger pretty quick, though. That's one thing I will say. A lot of times when they're shooting at these people,
Yeah.
how many times have you shot a gun in your life?
None. Well, actually, when I was younger, I did. I mean, since I've been in my early 20s, none.
I've shot.
I was at a range,
quite a few times.
Yeah.
And if you notice, a lot of these people that get blasted from the police, they get shot like 5 times,
They're
10
shooting
times.
to kill. They're shooting to kill.
I always thought they were supposed to hit you in your leg.
Yeah. I think what happens is a lot of, and this is where training comes in, like you said. I think a lot of those thoughts of like shooting a guy goes out the window when you're taking a bullet towards you.
Yeah,
You're just shooting to kill. Yeah. So
it's the same thing
yeah.
in prison when they
Right.
shank someone.
Yeah,
They
yeah,
get
yeah,
stabbed
yeah.
100,000 times. I get it.
there is no easy solution to this. That's
No.
what I mean. All these things that are going on in the news and everything. There's just no and to think that the answer is to defund the police, right? And it's just not.
God.
It's not going to lead to anything good. So I don't know.
I don't even know how to take that kind of a statement. You know?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what they're looking to do. Are they looking to not have a police? What kind of police
Well,
force? are
the
you looking
idea,
go
the idea
ahead.
behind it is like they think that for different scenarios, police should show up.
Mhm.
There's certain things that you want a cop to show up to: a robbery,
Yes.
a rape,
Right.
things like that.
Mhm.
And even in some rape cases,
Mm-hmm.
it's not necessarily a cop that you need. You need a forensics expert. You know,
Mhm.
like the different psychologists.
Right.
You know. You see, cops are given this, like, they have to be like the general purpose tool.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like the Swiss Army knife of enforcement, you know?
Yeah.
And it's kind of like, it's almost like an unfair amount of pressure to put on a single person. Because you might show up to a domestic spat.
Well, that's what they want the social workers for.
Right.
Domestic spats.
I'm sure they already have that, though. I'm sure there's already police divisions of psychologists, police psychologists, you know?
Right.
So it's like
this thing where you're going to just send an unarmed social worker into a domestic dispute. You could have a husband that's a total lunatic.
and kill you.
Yeah,
Right.
I mean, you know, you're putting that person's life at risk. So I just think that these things are they're short-sighted solutions to say defund the police. But I do think there is something like to training, like you said, and ongoing, you know, a certain portion of the day needs to go to training.
Truckers have to take more tests, you know, like,
Yeah.
it's kind of crazy.
it's,
There are certain things that they got to look at.
And the
I don't want to step on anyone's toes
yeah,
either.
sure.
You know, like, I obviously have nothing but respect for cops.
yeah, but look, there's bad cops though. It's just it is what it is. There's no way that
The
you can say
cowboy
they're
thing
all
that we
perfect.
talked about, that's like a tough
Yeah.
thing that's like human nature.
Yeah,
You know, so
that's the
it's-
thing. You know,
You can't,
you just can't make generalized. And I'm not saying that you did, but like people in general just can't say like general statements like cops are dicks or like not all of anything are bad. You know, there are certainly a percentage, just like there's a percentage of civilians that are dicks. You know, it's like,
but it's like, that's the thing. It's like, you could take anything in life.
it's when a
You
dick
could
meets
take
a
a
dick.
drug dealer and he's a nice guy.
Yeah, right.
You
right.
know, so it's like,
But in his line of work,
he's an ass. So it's, you know.
tough. It's tough.
You know what there is a major issue with in this country is mental health.
There you go. Lack of education and mental health.
That's it. I don't care what anybody else says. Nobody will shake that belief on me.
No,
I don't
I
think that
agree.
there is any support for truly mentally disturbed people.
They kept closing places. That's what they're doing. Place like Kings Park that was open, you know, they closed it.
They could have just revamped it and turned it into like the Stony Brook of.
There are people who look. I have a cousin who, well, this is my father's cousin. Actually, I just had a conversation with him about this last night, and there's a relative on my father's side. The guy's in his 30s, and apparently he was a fully functioning accountant. Was hardworking, you know, had a good job, had a good life, refuses to take his medication for manic depression or bipolar. His life spirals out of control. He ends up where he's now living back at his mom's house. He walks out all hours of the night in like a manic state where she has to chase after him and
He's
look
like
for
crazy,
him.
yeah.
Crazy. Ends up he's arrested. Then he's put into a mental hospital, not a mental, rather jail. She goes to visit him, and he'll say, "Mom, come see me. I miss you." She'll get up there, and then all of a sudden he freaks. "Get out of here! I don't want to see you." So,
Oh man, that sucks.
you know, I think that mental health. I mean, that's a guy
That
who's
was kind of what the Joaquin Phoenix Joker movie kind of touched on.
Yeah.
That was really the reason that he lost his marbles was because the social services
Yes.
deteriorated
Sure.
in the city,
Yeah.
and he was
Yes.
left to wander around to
Yeah.
his own devices. And there's a lot of people out
There's
there.
a lot
who
of
have no
jokers out there.
There is.
you know.
That's what's so scary about that movie. It's like,
This guy, I was shocked because I thought maybe he was just always like a screw, like. And then my parents said, no, the guy was a college graduate, went to a good college, has, you know, had a good job, was fully functioning, and man, he doesn't take that medication, or he can't get the medication, or whatever it is, and his life, literally, it's just like a house
the
of
funny
cards.
thing is, there's also the flip side. There's the people who take the medication that shouldn't take that. Those antidepressant, those are powerful drugs.
Yeah.
I mean, look
Yeah.
at that guy without it. Then you get people who don't need it, who take it and cry foul.
Yeah.
Or cry wolf, rather, to get the meds.
Yeah.
Like Xanax and things like
Sure.
that.
Xanax is abused I mean,
and I don't understand what the appeal of it is.
there's a woman I saw all the time when she would like, I'm flying, I'm nervous, I'm about to pop my Xanax. It's like people eat these things like chiclets, and it's,
I have a friend who
Yeah.
has a little, nervous
Yeah.
disorder,
Mm-hmm.
and they say, it really helps them. But
Well, I worked with a
I
guy.
took one in my life.
Yeah.
In my whole life,
Uh-huh.
I took one, and I did not notice any difference, and I just don't understand.
Well, I worked with a guy years ago, and he didn't have a prescription. Somebody else did, and then the guy gave him Xanax, and he would take them, and I'd look at him 10 minutes later, and his head would be he'd be out, drooling, like it affected him. Now, I know there's a difference between the bars and the pills. Like I guess the bars are supposedly bigger or something.
I don't even know.
Yeah. So-
I had this whatever.
Yeah.
But there's just a lot of drug abuse, and
Mm-hmm.
I tell you, it's really like a big heaping pile of shit right
it's
now. this
society.
country.
It's
Yeah,
society. It's always look these problems. You know.
That's why it's all about family. That's why.
Right.
It's
Right.
like
Right.
that's why these old school values are so important.
That is really at the root cause of a lot of problems. Are the
families.
knocking down of.
Well, that's what I mean.
Yeah, you're right. But like the knocking down of things like
Like a family
the
sitting down having dinner or whatever the hell.
Yeah.
Like, that's usually what they
family
do.
though, but like
Yeah.
love.
Big
Yeah.
events and Christmas, whatever.
Raising your kids with love and letting them know that
A lot of times parents have a lot of issues.
Yeah.
Sometimes and
Absolutely.
it goes deep.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I know a guy who is on Facebook. I'm not going to mention his name,
Yeah.
but he's on Facebook every day posting borderline like suicidal stuff.
Ugh.
And it's like a cry for attention. And I told him I know him on this level, so I can kind
Yeah.
of joke with him about it. And I said, do you ever think of like turning this into stand-up comedy? Because it's actually kind of comical.
Yeah.
If I was to show you, you'd be like, oh wow, it's pretty
Yeah.
funny.
Yeah. So he just like puts out there that he's
He
looking
puts
to kill
out there
himself.
these bizarrety, like if he has an argument with his mom. You ever see like Shameless?
Yeah.
Or the concept of it. I feel like he kind of comes from like one of those families
Oh, yeah.
where like his mom's got an issue, his dad's got
Sure.
an issue, his brother's locked up, whatever the case
Yeah,
may
yeah,
be.
yeah. It's just all.
It's like it's the total disaster. And like he'll wake up in the morning, he'll like say, "Oh, I woke up, I'm feeling pretty good. I think it's gonna be a good day." And then
So he
like an
gives
hour and a half
everybody-
later,
it's like, phew.
I got into a really bad fight with my mom. It pains me that she doesn't think anything of me. Like crazy, like bizarre stuff.
Yeah.
And he's like 30.
Yeah. See, that's the thing. It's
Like if she goes in for like a surgery, like he'll like report on like the morbidities of it all. It's just so
well. That's the thing
inappropriate
too.
and weird.
People, everybody wants that 15 minutes of fame.
Right. He just does it all day.
Yeah. Yeah. It's sad. It's a cry. It's a cry for attention. He never got. Whatever he's lacking, it's manifesting itself in these pleas on Facebook.
It's bizarre.
Yeah.
It's really bizarre.
Yeah.
And I was like, hey,
Does
man.
he realize that people think it? Or he probably.
Well, I try to like
Yeah.
low key, like
Sure.
kind of
The bug.
make some
Yeah.
kind of passive aggressive,
Sure.
like yesterday. I was like, my buddy, always good for my daily dose of
Yeah.
positivity.
Oh my God.
Because like if you read his posts and you're like lonely, you might get even lonelier.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. Well, that's why Facebook is like. Yeesh.
he's the only one. But
Yeah.
I just can't help it though.
Yeah.
So like me and my friend Jeff, we like to we keep tabs on this kid.
Yeah, but that is mental health is a but I don't know if you saw this also. BLM has taken down the portion of their manifesto that they had where it said they wanted to do away with the family. They wanted to do away with like the differences between men and women and the raising of a kid and all the things.
They probably lost a lot of their luster.
Well,
with
that's
that,
what
yeah.
happened. It was being all of a sudden people started to look at that and they said, "Holy shit! Like, wow, that's what you guys are about."
I don't understand where like those ideologies come from. Like I can't put my head into the mind of a communist. I really can't because there's gonna be something along the way that I'm gonna want to do that you don't like to do.
Well,
Or and it's
they're
like-
even more extreme than a communist. They are communist. You're right about their views on the government, but like in Russia or Soviet Union, family was still important.
Right. It was all about family.
These people don't want. They want to just basically they're the ones who started it. They're so fucked up that they want everybody else to be fucked
suffer,
up,
right.
so that they don't feel like they're the outcast. Because
They're
that's
like
really
hate
what they
fucking
are.
the world.
Yeah. So they portray themselves under a guise of social justice warriors for blacks and all the downtrodden, the people who were trans.
All the while.
Yeah, but
Getting loaded.
all the while collecting money, and all the while what they really want is to destroy everything that has made us into a strong country, which at the root of it is, like you said, strong family values. And it's,
if you don't like family, then like I don't like you.
Yeah,
That's how I feel. Like I don't understand that. Is that a privilege? All of us are a part of a family.
I know. I don't get it.
If your family's a pack of jagoffs,
well, that's what the problem.
That's your
was.
problem, dude.
Those women, they have a lot of hatred towards their own fathers.
Right.
So they hate men.
Yep.
It's all like
their brothers
ugliness.
are probably jerk offs.
Yeah, their ugliness within them, and but they want, but everybody else has to suffer, and whereas instead of them learning the right things, but they took it out because of the fact that it was just a lightning rod for people to...
I can't figure out for the life of me how when anything ever like this happens that they would want Al Sharpton to be the champion of the cause.
That's what your grandmother said last night. It's so
Why
funny
would they want him?
Well,
it's so clear that he's a piece of garbage.
Because, look, the people that are doing this and go to him, first of all, they're ignorant. So for them, they see him as this icon and a guy who's fought for 30 years for racial justice. He made his
wonder what
name.
His house looks like.
He made his name by going after a person who was innocent.
Right.
And he ruined this guy in the press, on TV, and they ruined him. And then it was found out that it was a total fraud and that the girl was lying. Yet
was it a rape case?
Yeah, she said she was raped by a white guy. It was a black girl. Tawana Brawley was her name. She said some white guy beat her and raped her. And
another Jussie Smollett kind of case.
Yeah,
it's like a total fallacy.
And then you saw Al Sharpton was this really fat, looked like Barry White, but on crack.
I remember.
Yeah, and he came out and he was, and it's like, who the fuck is this guy? And he looks like a pimp, and he's like selling him, saying, oh, this guy, we will do away with these white devils that did this and blah, blah, blah. When he should have at that point been made obsolete, somehow he's managed to. So what he does is he has a show, he has like radio shows, and it's like any candidate that runs for the Democratic Party, they have to meet Al Sharpton in Harlem and have
He's the representative for their
you
whole
have to
community.
Have lunch at like some like soul food restaurant and get his okay. But what he does is he kind of is even keel, like he has his show where he's always spouting his shit. But when something happens where a case against police or where it's a white versus black, then he comes out and he's like
an attorney.
That's what he does. He's an ambulance chaser. And that's how he's remained. That's why he doesn't want racism to really go away.
Right, he wants to amplify it.
Because if it did, you'd never hear from him.
I don't understand why people can't see that.
Well, again, he preys on the ignorant people.
Right.
That's what he does. People who
that's
like
the worst kind of a person.
People who want the government to wipe their ass and do everything. That's what he does. You're not smart enough to fight for yourself.
Right.
I got to do it for you. I got to be the voice. He's despicable.
The downfall of
He's despicable.
West is that mentality.
Yeah.
Is that all of a sudden you're just a pink, fleshy robot.
Right.
That can't. You need me to program you.
It's almost like he's insulting the black people he's representing because he's saying you're too stupid to do your own, represent yourself. You need me to speak. And that's how he's made. I wouldn't
say that about a leader like Herman Cain or
of course not.
Or what's the other one's name? Ben Carson. Ben Carson's another great one. They tarnish his name.
He's a genius,
He's a brain surgeon.
But they go after
God
that
forbid
guy.
he has faith.
Right. Oh, forget
That's
it.
the problem
Right.
that they have with him.
Right.
But meanwhile, the blacks are a very
Right.
faithful community.
Yeah.
Whether it's Christianity or
That's
Islam.
another thing that's led to some of the issues is the religion and that's why they want to do away with these things.
Right.
Because it gives them strong family, strong sense of, there's a football player, Shannon Sharp, and his brother's name is Sterling, and these guys grew up in rural Georgia. They lived in a cinder block house where they said that they had like a tin roof where you lay back at night and you can actually see the sky.
That's nice.
And they said there were two things. They were raised by their grandparents. And they said there was two things in their lives that you had to be present at. And that was work and church. And these guys are both, not only were they successful football players, they were successful after their careers. And the one brother is like totally a class act. He speaks brilliantly. And he goes to schools to talk to kids and stuff. And then the other brother has his own show on TV, and he's always, does like a lot of the pregame and postgame stuff. But the church was very strong within the households and within the black community. And that's why BLM is looking to do away with these things. Because anything that
it's funny because like BLM is more or less headed up by these like anarcho white freaks.
Yeah, well,
I know that they're like three leaders.
Yeah, but you're right.
You're talking
You're
about,
right.
But like, that's like the element. That's where that's coming from.
Yes.
That's
Yes.
not coming from the black community. That's
No.
coming from the freaking weirdos that look like Machine Gun Kelly.
who prey
Yeah.
on the blacks that are
Right.
outcasts. And it's it's like low-hanging fruit. It's so easy to get those people to just to follow your, and
It's
that's what
honestly,
happens.
that's the biggest crime I see.
Yeah. You're
It-
preying on other people's,
Yeah.
It's like preying on old people. You're preying on people who they don't have the minds to make good decisions. So you're turning them into these radicals.
So interesting concept. If you were to increase education, right?
Okay.
That would cost tax dollars.
Sure.
It
Without
has
a
to.
doubt. Anything
That
like
would
that
be
does.
socialism, right? Would that be considered a socialist program to have like an educational overhaul and kind of just direct more money?
Not necessarily. No, I mean, you can.
That's the thing with socialism that a lot of people don't understand is that in our capitalist society, there's
Yeah.
still socialism.
Yes, of course.
And it's not necessarily
a
a
lot
bad
of
thing.
them blend, and even like some aspects of communism and socialism blend a little bit.
That's the tricky thing with libertarianism.
Yeah,
Is like,
yeah.
do you like your fire department? I don't understand. Like,
It depends, like, who's controlling certain things.
Right.
That's where really like the difference between socialism and communism is like the government can tell you what to produce in socialism, but you own your production.
Right.
Communism, they own. The
There's
government
also a
owns.
difference between like a liberal ran socialism and a conservative run
Yes,
socialism.
it's
like the Nordic
Yeah.
countries are kind of a conservatively run
yes,
socialism.
yes,
And it's beautiful.
Yes.
I have no issue with it.
right. Yep.
Whereas like you go to somewhere like Croatia and you have that
Yes,
real
it's-
influence of the communism
Yes.
there,
and it's
Kind of fascinating.
It is, and a lot of the theories, like you said, a lot.
I don't
of
have a
these
hatred
ones-
towards socialism.
No, I mean
Because
they're,
socialism is a huge part of being a Republican and a Democrat.
Yeah, they're-
whether you like it or not.
Yes, and
It's strange.
There's good aspects
Yes.
to everything.
Education,
but, yeah,
police
but
department, right.
it's just it really comes down to almost like human rights issues. That's where the issues are really
It's a don't
Yeah.
tread on me issue.
Yeah, like
What do you think though about a billionaire's tax or anything like that, or hitting Wall Street? Like anything that Bernie Sanders said that held any water for you, or who should keep
that is a very tough.
Because I almost don't feel like protecting them
Yeah, a lot
because
of
what the
people
hell do
don't.
they do for me? But then it's like,
Why do they have to do something for you? Like that's
well, that's a great point.
yeah. That's all I mean. It's like
But the thing is,
I
then
don't
like
know.
then
I mean,
us schmucks in the middle
yeah.
are the ones with all their weight, where they're getting away with all these
Right.
tax breaks, incentives up
Right.
the wazoo,
The
and then
argument
we
that they
carry the
always
weight,
have
and the poor
is
people carry the weight.
the argument they always have is, and I'm only playing.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
It's just these are real tricky.
That's
things.
what I mean.
Yeah,
It's very tricky, and that's
Complex.
why politicians sometimes play both sides of the fence, because you're never going to please all the people all the
no,
time.
and your views might change too.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It all comes down to what affects you directly, I think.
Right.
Where people's views are. Like, let's say a guy was, there's very few people. The good ones are like the people who rise from nothing and make a lot of money and then want to go back and help where they came from almost.
Sure.
So a lot of those
They
guys.
get into like the philanthropy.
Yeah, those are like good human beings, It's sometimes, though, people, they got wronged so much on their way up that when they get there, they're like, fuck everybody else.
Right.
So,
Gonna
and
steal
who am I?
everything. Right.
Who am I to say, when I don't walk in somebody's shoes, to say, nope, 50% of your taxes should go to pay. What about if that guy worked?
Busted his hump for 30
Yeah,
years.
like his
Right.
family hates him because he was never there and he was working like a dog,
Right.
trying, it's very hard, man.
Sacrifice.
I don't have the answers, and that's why
In your opinion, what would be a good tax system? Graduated or? Because I remember when I was like 15 years old getting
Yep.
my first on the books checks.
Mhm.
I
hit you
I
like a
was
ton
making
of bricks, right?
It's ridiculous how much tax you pay when you make 150
I
bucks
remember
a
it
week.
for me too. I
It
know.
was insane. That's
I know.
not right.
I know.
It's
You get your check expecting something
like
close.
300 bucks and you got
What
150.
the-
Half of it's gone.
Yeah.
It's kind of sick that they
I
do
know.
that. I don't understand that. They could fix that.
I remember when my accountant came to me when I opened up a business, and I was so used to being a teacher or working on the books
Right.
and my taxes going through my checks where
Yeah.
you almost don't
You
even think about
yeah,
it.
it's just
And
better
all,
that way.
And all of a sudden he came up to me and he goes, he dropped an envelope on my desk, and
You
I'm
owe
like,
this,
what's
by
that?
the way, to the
He
federal
goes,
government.
can you just make sure you transfer 80,000 into the other account? I was like, what?
Yeah.
80 grand for what? He goes, oh, your taxes. I'm like,
Yeah.
that was my
I hear
introduction.
you.
That was my introduction to actually having to go in my pocket to pay my own taxes and not just having it taken out. So it's tough,
It's also a tricky number. Like, what number is it that, like, should it be like 100 grand a year and under?
Mhm.
You get like a lot of deals.
Well,
But then there's the 250 grand a year category, but you got all these kids.
yes.
And
they consider you to be wealthy, at that
point.
and when you're
but a billionaire's wealthy.
Right.
A millionaire's
Right,
wealthy.
right.
But a
Yeah.
millionaire would even be like, I'm not that wealthy.
yeah, that's
It's crazy.
my boss, when I was learning the industry that I eventually went to, I remember I was making next to nothing. I was a young guy, and I was just like, man, I got to make more money. And he goes, trust me, kid. You make more money, you get more problems, and you have more bills. That's all
Yeah.
it is. And you know what? I was
For
like,
real.
I wish I had his problems. Then I opened a business. I was making money, and I
And you had those
realized,
problems.
holy shit, he was right.
I got
you know?
problems.
So,
Yeah.
but like where the issues too are, here's an example, like capital gains tax. Let's say I make money, I want to cash in on a stock real quick, and I make 10%. All right, a quick 10%. But capital gains tax is 15%. So it's like you make a little money, you risk putting your money into the stock market. The Democrats get in and they want to jack that capital gains tax up.
Right.
So it's like, that's why the stock market then starts to go down, because people don't want to put, it's like taxes
At
are.
the end of the day,
Yeah.
it sucks.
It's very difficult.
Because, like, tax is robbery.
It's very difficult.
They
but
put a
without
gun to your
tax,
head.
right? Without it,
Then you got nothing.
country ceases to exist.
But then also, like, I always think of this, and
Yeah.
I know it's a cliche,
Mhm.
but I know that the government's got to travel, they got to be in planes and this and that.
I know what
But
you're
look
gonna
at
say.
their homes, look at their wardrobes. That's coming from what? They
Well,
make good money, but not that much on like a senator's salary. Like they get money from elsewhere.
some of them are independently wealthy. A lot of them, for instance, like Obama made a shitload of money after the presidency.
I know.
So
He's like going to be a gazillionaire by
yeah.
the time
So
he's
I
gone.
mean, It's the dirty ones that make money and filter it while they're in office, but
Right.
they, a lot of them get
I don't
popped.
mind if, like, to me, if Bill Clinton wants to go and give a speech and gets $250,000
Yeah,
for it,
well, that's what he
that's
does.
none of
yeah.
my business.
No.
But it's like the tax thing, and like, does he get a tax break? Like, what happens with that?
I'm sure he's got.
There's no transparency,
Yeah.
and that's like my biggest
Well-
laugh of the day is that the U.S. government and most Canadian, UK, it's we're so transparent. Are you really? Because you need a law degree and a microscope to
Yeah.
figure out what's actually happening.
Well, you could rest assured that they are hiring the best accountants to find
God.
every.
And they're
loophole.
usually in another country.
That's why a lot of them filter the money offshore. You get a lot of
A lot
offshore.
of European vacations.
So taxes are
I like ragging on these people. Honestly, at the end of
Yeah.
the day, left or right, they all suck.
Yeah.
They're all crooks.
Yeah.
That's really how I feel, people.
It's not easy to be a politician, that's for sure, because you can't please everybody. That is.
I just like when Donald Trump's on Air Force One with a bucket of chicken and like a soda, and he's like smiling.
Yeah.
I say bravo, chicken bucket.
Yeah. Well, he likes his.
He
He
loves
likes
his
that.
fast
Yes,
food.
he does.
God
Yes, he
bless
does.
America, man.
Yes, he does.
And he's like pretty healthy in the scheme of things.
He loves it. He loves a burger, from McDonald's. He loves
I was
his,
watching video footage of him at 9/11 when it happened.
Yeah.
He was there.
Yeah.
And
of
he
course.
was giving money to people to
Sure.
come and volunteer
Yeah.
out of his pocket.
Yeah. Yep.
I mean, man,
I don't get this hatred for him. I
don't
mean,
either.
I understand. Look, he is his own worst enemy with the Twitter. I get. I
yeah,
understand.
but people
some of it.
also love it.
I know.
I love that.
I know. I could understand not liking him because he's just
The
not
other
your type
side
of
does
person.
that with Twitter all day.
Yeah, but this hatred of him to the point where it's like they want to watch him die a horrible death. Like,
I know, it's crazy.
What is that about? Where did it come from?
He's a self-made man.
Well, his father did.
I understand,
but he did.
that doesn't change
He
the
did
fact that
grow
you're
it.
self-made.
Yes.
If you made,
Yeah, no question about it.
he's not a. See, this is the difference between Biden and Trump.
Yes.
Biden spent 40 years collecting money off of the sweat and tears of the American taxpayer, where Trump spent his life sweating and tearing his way into making money for people like Biden to rob
Trump is
it
a
for
hard
taxes.
worker, no question about that.
That guy's sick. He works his ass off.
He's up
Every time
early,
something happens, he's
Yeah.
on it.
Yes. I can't. It's funny you're bringing up all the points that your grandfather did. Here's a good point too that your grandfather brought up. And is there ever anybody about politics that I like hearing his point of view? It's your grandfather because
He's
very.
brilliant.
He said Joe Biden struck gold that his campaign is this year.
Right.
Because if he had to follow a campaign schedule like Trump and Hillary did.
Oh, God, he would have fell
he-
out.
Right.
He
Right.
died.
Remember what happened to Hillary when she was
Right.
passing
She
out?
was literally
That
passing
is
out.
grueling. And Trump and Biden are kind of the same age. And it's like they're two different people completely.
I think Trump would remember when he was on WWE?
Yeah.
And he, like, slammed Ed McMahon?
So Vince
So,
McMahon,
like,
yeah, so
and
funny.
Trump is just like a
yeah,
legend,
yeah,
man.
Yeah.
People
Well, all the people that hate him used to love him back
Right.
in the day. Trust me.
he was in Home Alone.
Yeah, people.
He helped. He was the only one that helped Macaulay Culkin's
All the
character.
rappers liked him because he had the money.
Al Sharpton
yeah,
liked him.
they all liked him. It's just, come on. This hatred, it's like, ugh.
It's literally disgusting.
It is. It is.
And it's ignorant. And people are, like, party lines are drawn.
Yeah.
So people are going to
it's-
vote blue and people are
that's
going to
it.
vote
It's like
red. There's
they-
no in between.
They can't, it's just,
And
it's
I
scary.
like parts of liberalism.
Yeah.
I like
yeah.
parts of conservatism.
Sure.
I
I'm,
like parts
uh,
of freedom. I like parts of anarchy to some degree is even good. It's like moderation with. I know it sounds crazy.
Yeah,
to say
everything
that.
in moderation.
Everything in moderation.
Yeah, I get it. I get it.
Like anarchy oftentimes gets that riot looting type
Sure.
of connotation, but
Yeah.
People
aren't able to handle it. That's the problem.
No.
Yeah.
Well, I was listening to something pretty interesting on Art Bell's program the other night. I'm just going to bring up.
Yeah.
There was a point where George Bush Sr. was out of his presidency, and they asked him about like extraterrestrial life.
Okay.
And he said that the American population couldn't handle the truth.
I believe it. I believe it.
Interesting.
Yeah, I believe it.
Really, really interesting.
Well, look, that is an argument. That was even the argument
and
with
the reason
COVID.
I brought that up is what you said. Like people couldn't handle it.
Well, that was the argument with COVID when they were saying Trump should tell everybody everything.
Right.
You don't want to create this anarchy.
I know, but I don't like being told that I can't handle something.
I know. But
Like if an asteroid's coming, I want to know.
I know. You do want to know or you don't want to know?
I do.
Okay, yeah. No, I get it. I
got places to go, man.
There's places on both sides. There's arguments on both sides.
If aliens
I'm not
exist,
disagreeing
I want to
with
know.
you. Yeah.
I don't like this, like, it just seems to go against everything that's American.
Yeah.
Everything that's the American spirit. The government shouldn't be
So
dictating.
then you disagree with what Bush said.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But I think it's interesting also that he acknowledged it.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas Trump says he's not a believer, but anything's possible.
Yeah.
I
wonder. So go finish your point.
Go ahead.
I wonder if what's really there that they learn about the presidents when they take over
God,
is
I would love
as much
as we think.
Imagine it's really just nothing. Like, yeah, it's a
I
joke.
think it's a
There's
deep
nothing.
state thing. I really think that
That's a real good question for people. I would love to see anybody who listens to this show. I would love to hear your theory.
they say that there's like a book.
Yeah.
Like this old book that all the presidents have written in.
Yes.
And that's passed on
Yes.
to the presidents and stuff.
Well, this is my question to anybody who watches this episode.
Imagine accessing that.
My question is, do you think when a president takes office and they're now learning all the secrets that the presidents supposedly learn when they take office about anything, aliens, about what goes on really behind closed doors with the government, do you think what they learn is as much as some people think, where it's this like huge conspiracy thing? Or do you really think, yeah, it's a big joke, everybody thinks something big is going on, it's just us running the show here? What do you really think goes on behind the scenes? I'm just curious what everybody's take is.
I've heard some pretty wise people say, do you really think the government could hold a secret?
Yeah. Right, that's what I mean.
And it made me think, but they can. They can and they can't. With certain things, they leak. With other things...
So many people would have to be kept in check. That's the problem.
I know.
Like, I can't picture somebody like a Trump even, as
Holding
loose-lipped as he is, maybe slipping and saying something to somebody. I just don't know. I don't know.
I really think Trump does things as a likability contest as well.
Yeah.
So I think if he had like access to information like that, he would probably avoid it because a big portion of his probably fan base would be like, "You're crazy, dude." You know, it's kind of like out there.
I would like to
tell
hear
you.
what everybody thinks. I'm very curious.
What was interesting was, remember a few years back, the Canadian, it was like kind of like a Canadian senator. He said that the U.S. government directly works with. Well, I got curious the other night to see what that was all about.
Okay.
And he literally gave a UN speech, speaking for like 45 minutes
Yeah.
about the United States' relationship with extraterrestrial life. And he kept referencing these beings called the Tall Whites.
Huh.
Have you ever heard of them?
No.
They look like they're like Scandinavian.
Oh, wow.
And they're tall and they're like almost like Aryan. That's like
Sure.
And
Do they look like humans?
they look like humanoids, like perfect beings, tall, long blonde hair.
Yeah.
And they say that they work with them in underground bunkers. And this is from a high-ranking ex-general of Canada named Paul Hellyer.
Wow.
I recommend you check that out.
I am.
Because it's pretty powerful. And he got a standing ovation at this speech, by the way. All headed up by really influential Canadians. And
Well,
another thing, I just want to end on this. Canada
this
is
interesting to me,
entering, I believe, a second wave of COVID lockdowns. And I know Trudeau did his like speech from the throne yesterday.
Okay.
And I like to pay attention to that kind of stuff because generally, if it's going to happen there, it will trickle down to here, vice versa. And so they are entering like a stage 2 lockdown type of deal. And
I hope that doesn't happen here.
He's asking people to put their foot back on the gas and social distance, stay away from everybody.
Are they closing things again?
From what I understand, things are getting tightened. They're tightening up again. So that's just to the north. For anyone who wants to check into that.
Pray it's not.
I can't believe that Trudeau's still in power.
I know.
It blew me away.
I know.
Like, who could listen to a word the guy has to say?
He reminds me of a Gavin Newsom.
He's a turd.
Yeah.
He's a Canadian turd.
Yeah.
Anyway, everybody have a great day.
Good
We had a
one
lot of
today.
fun
Very
today.
interesting,
I want to talk about tomorrow a little bit. I want to get into the tall whites.
Yeah.
I want you to check into that.
I will.
And I also would love it if you could look into that guy. Which
Paul Hellyer?
Paul Hellyer, I believe it is.
All right.
Really fascinating stuff.
I will check it out.
Everybody have a great Thursday. And we'll be back with another Future History podcast.